Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Peyton Marshall, LeveragePoint CEO, and I'm pleased to moderate our session today. I'd like to welcome all of you to another one of our monthly webinars on value-based strategy. Sponsored by LeveragePoint, the only software platform for customer value collaboration. We offer a SaaS-based cloud platform that links cross-functional team members involved in building and executing a value-based strategy to change the way companies create, communicate, and capture value. Find out more about us from our website, leveragepoint.com. Now, during the webinar, if you have specific questions or comments, please feel free to enter them in the right-hand panel in the questions section. Later, we'll respond to as many of them as we can. Also remember to complete our quick survey upon exiting today's webinar. If you do so, you will be eligible to win a free copy of Stephan Liozu's new book, The Pricing Journey, The Organizational Transformation Towards Pricing Excellence. There are 2 copies on offer, so double the chance to win. We're delighted to have with us again Stephan Liozu, Pricing Evangelist, thought leader, and founder of Value Innoruption Advisors. Stephan specializes in the design of innovative and differentiated business strategies and the implementation of value-based pricing strategies. Stephan's acclaimed Customer Value Modeler, CVM, certification program trains professionals in value modeling best practices. He's the author and co-editor of numerous books and academic papers. His books include Pricing in the Sales Force, The ROI of Pricing, Innovation in Pricing, A User's Guide to Value Modeling, and The Pricing Journey. Stephan is a veteran business leader with extensive hands-on experience, including as CEO of Ardex Americas. He sits on the board of the Professional Pricing Society, and we're pleased to have him on the LeveragePoint Advisory Board. Stephan holds a Ph.D. from Case Western, where he is currently an adjunct professor and a visiting scholar. Today, we look forward to Stephan's insights into the pricing journey, the 5 key dimensions to achieving B2B pricing excellence. Welcome, Stephan.
Well, thanks very much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you, and again, thanks for giving me the opportunity to spread the word, the good word on the pricing journey, and try to put in perspective how a firm can decide to go on a journey, and what what that firm and the team in the firm is going to face as far as potential dynamics and what the dimensions will be for success. So it is the pricing journey, the book, and this webinar is based on 5 years of PhD research, but also a lot of discussions at conferences, a lot of case studies and analysis, and the journey that I was privileged to conduct in Ardex Americas from 2009 to 2012. So you will see lots of good information in there, and we'll focus on the 5C model, these 5 key components, key dimensions to drive towards pricing excellence, keeping in mind that pricing excellence is a journey, not a destination. Even when you get there, you have to continue working on it. So I would say, there's a lot of misconception in what a pricing journey is, and as you know, I like a good visual for depicting a little bit of my thoughts. So this is my latest, in exclusivity, my latest comic that will come out in July on the pricing journey. And the misconception usually is coming from various functions that they understand there's going to be some transformational change in pricing, and some people will want to go too fast. Other people will think, well, maybe it's going to be a walk in the park, or maybe just a simple project, as in maybe an innovation project or other IT project. And others may think, well, we're going to use these super duper fantastic tools that may be relevant at some point or not be relevant. So there's a lot of misconception and myth around what a journey is, when in fact you look at the bottom here of this page, and it is hard work, it is a teamwork, it's going to be a lot of up and down, and you're going to go at a pace that pretty much will be dictated by what the market lets you do, and what your culture will allow you to do as far as change culture. So this really this comic shows that you really have to think about a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm not saying you're going to be riding donkeys or anything, but it's going to be using tools when they make sense, and moving forward, and keeping a very open mind and being resilient. So the journey starts at some point, depending on where you start in the in sophistication and maturity in pricing, and eventually you reach the zone of pricing power, which is shown right here. And you've seen that. Hopefully, you've seen that slide before, that chart before, in the MIT Sloan Management Review paper I was able to publish in 2012 with Dr. Hinterhuber, or in the book itself. So the goal is really to go to the pricing power zone, where you have a advanced progressive value-based pricing as a primary orientation, and then you have excellent price realization, which is the discipline of managing your price, the price process, the pricing systems, all the guidelines, et cetera, including Salesforce compensation and all these tools that are available to you as pricing and business professionals. So most companies will start their journey from somewhere in the zone, hopefully not the white flag zone where you're internally focused and in cost-based pricing, and you have a weak level pricing discipline. I've seen a lot of companies start the journey and be stuck in zones of good intentions. And that is when you understand there is a pricing problem, you understand you have to change the way you do pricing, you start doing a lot of pricing work, but somewhere along the way, there's going to be a lot of internal resistance, there's going to be a total misalignment of the organization, there's going to be a lot of market conditions that will shut down the efforts, and then you're stuck in the zone of good intention where you lose the energy, a lot of things don't work, you don't get the payback for your pricing project. So, and really that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of the presentation. How do you avoid these situations? How do you take a more incremental approach to the pricing journey, and how do you transform your culture to be eventually reaching the zone of pricing power? So, through the research, I developed the 5C model of pricing excellence, and some of you have seen it before if you've taken a PPS online course. And what I'm saying is the combination of these 5 C's are needed to go from A to Z in your transformational journey. You know where you're starting from by doing a pricing capability assessment and a maturity assessment of your pricing practices, and then you set up the target. This is where we're going, and you develop a change management roadmap, which will need these 5 components. So it starts with champions at the top, leading the internalization of pricing practices. And here I'm not using on purpose the word adoption. It's internalization, because it's assimilation. It needs to be sticking with people. So the champions really have to make sure that whatever is deployed in the organization is staying with people, change is irreversible, and people are assimilating new ways of doing pricing or value activities. Number 2 is change has to happen at multiple levels in the organization, and it is really requiring organizational mobilization. So there's a myth around the pricing function that it's only about pricing and sales. And obviously the 2 functions are important, but then you need to look wider. You need to look at the role of customer service, inside sales, technical support, HR, marketing communications, and finance, on how they support the transformational journey. How do they help align all these processes and all these goals and incentive system, for example. So it's not just 1 or 2 functions. To really go and put pricing at the organizational level in large corporations, you're going to have to engage every function that's relevant to the journey. At the same time, you'll need to build strong capabilities, no doubt about it, formal and informal pricing capabilities and organizational capabilities, and that will include not only the traditional marketing, segmentation, understanding the differentiation, and pricing and value capabilities, but also the level of energies, the informal communication systems, change management. It's going to be a lot of hard and soft skills. Organizational confidence is really what acts as the fuel of superior pricing. And here I'm talking about organizational self-esteem. What is the collective sense of self-esteem of particular teams of people, multifunctional teams of people, to go and embrace superior and progressive pricing? So again, it's not just the sales force, it's the marketing people, the finance people, the technical training people who actually feel that they understand the differentiation of the business, they have a great self-esteem about it, and then they defend their premium in the field. And they defend, you know, their differentiation when they interact with buyers and other stakeholders in the market. Last but not least, center-led management, borrowed from the supply chain concepts, you know, which were very popular in the procurement world. Center-led is a new approach in pricing, which is a hybrid between centralized and decentralized. And pretty much the central team acts as a specialized expert supporting divisional pricing decision-making and diffusing knowledge and expertise across the entire organization without taking direct responsibility for the pricing tactics. So it's a sharing and joint responsibility for pricing. So here you have the 5 C's and how they play in the overall transformation, and it does require organizational mobilization. So not to fall in the trap of showing too much quantitative, you know, data, but here is the quantitative model that came out of the Ph.D., one of the Ph.D. research, and showing the combination of the 5 C models. And you could see very high R-square, not only on the confidence construct, but also on the performance. And you can see that it starts with the champion, and the role of champions positively influence firm performance. Also, champions are important in developing pricing capabilities and make sure that the team is equipped with the right tools and systems and training programs, supported by the center-led pricing management model. But at the end, the greater concept here is confidence, and confidence is what came out of a very strong in the overall research that was done for 4 years. Not only confidence is impacted by the capability of changing and the champions, but also it's a strong relationship to profit and firm performance. So I wanted to show that, you know, to tell you that behind the model, behind all this information in the book, there are multiple quantitative studies and multiple qualitative studies. And at the end, I was able to study 2,000 companies and their pricing practices. So it is a transformational change model, and I do believe that in pricing, I would stay away from big bang disruptive projects. You know, these big projects in pricing have a tendency to be not very successful because they're too much. It's because of the complexity of the pricing function and the fact that it touches multiple areas of the firm. You really have to go and break down this project into chunks and make them manageable and understandable by the users and the consumer of your pricing changes. So you have to start with pilot projects, find the right solution, start with pilot projects, create a lot of success stories, show the positive power of pricing at the practical level with small projects, and slowly increase the adoption. It's like a loop. You do pilot in a region, a pilot with a product, a pilot with innovation, a pilot in another region, and slowly you create a buzz about what's happening in pricing, and eventually when the organization is ready, you deploy that enterprise-wise, and it creates a modification at the cultural level. It's like changing the DNA. But you know, doing this all at once in the big bang projects that you will announce to the organization is gonna pretty much scare the recipient of the pricing changes, and you may face a lot of resistance towards pricing. So here is a transformational model then that came out of the Ph.D. work and tested in multiple organizations. Is you can see, first of all, the stimulus for change. There's always a stimulus that actually drives the need for pricing change. And it's erosion in margin, profit going down, disruption in the market with pricing, you name it, new product failures, merger and acquisition, trend toward commoditization. That's what starts the journey. At the end of it, the outcome is profit and pricing power, no doubt. And the steps are pretty much in 5 buckets. The first step, which is always, traditionally the ones that are, first and second step actually are the ones that are the most neglected. Realizing that you have pricing issues and exploring the root cause of your pricing issues and not just the symptoms. And that is what you do in a pricing capability assessment and several discovery sessions in which you include the sales force so that they have skin in the game, and it helps with change management. But you really explore what's happening, what's behind these symptoms. Is it the lack of segmentation? Is it a misalignment of goals? Is it a strategy not aligned with pricing strategy? Is it the lack of differentiation? You name it. But traditionally, we look at pricing symptoms and we say, well, we need to do more training, or we need to fix our discounting issues, where without really doing a Six Sigma analysis of Fishbone or FMEA, looking at what's driving, what's the root cause of it. Once you have that done, and that's not very complicated, you spend a couple sessions here and there over a 90-day period, really in a multifunctional environment, looking at discovering and exploring the root cause of our pricing issue. Why do we need to change? And that helps with creating the burning platform for change. The second step is you really have to understand the level of sophistication and the knowledge level of your teams in pricing. And if you have a variety of levels, if you have the sales team not knowing anything about pricing or general management not understanding the pricing principles, then I always recommend a 3 to 6 months process where you realign everybody's knowledge and you train everybody on basic pricing 101 to align definitions, to align language, and make sure everybody understands. And that's what we've been doing. When I was the CEO of Ardex, we had 28 CPPs, certified pricing professionals. We did multiple training sessions so that everybody started with the same knowledge. Once that is done, then you could start experimental adoption. This is when you actually set up your first pilot or 2 pilot projects, and slowly you start working on delivering case studies, delivering positive impact of pricing, demonstrating the ROI of pricing in the scope of a wider project. Then you go into incremental adoption, then you can accelerate based on these quick wins, these success stories. You accelerate the adoption all the way to, okay, now you're bringing in the big gun projects, the pricing software, some enterprise-wide activity. You put the process into a formal enterprise-wide capability system, and then that leads to eventually pricing power. But remember that you start demonstrating the quick wins at stage 3. This is where you line up your project so that you demonstrate that pricing has a strong ROI, the confidence is there, and the momentum is there. Along these 5 boxes, you integrate and assimilate pricing capabilities on the technical side. This is where you include your tools, your training program, your systems, your frameworks, your guidelines, and you do them at the right time. Obviously, I recommend to stay away from deploying large-scale optimization software in box number 1, which is some companies do it, and it's a mistake because you don't have people engaged in the discovery process of pricing issues, or you don't have people trained enough, and obviously there's going to be some rejection of what you're trying to do. So maybe I recommend some large-scale software towards the end. You could introduce some tools, do some basic training, webinars, and having simple Excel tools up front, and then slowly you graduate from these into more advanced tools. So keep in mind the 5 steps right here. Keep in mind that at each level of these stages, you're going to have different tools introduced with time. Now, usually that's what it takes 3 to 4 to 6 years. But if you start the journey, remember the grid. If you're already in the journey and not knowing it, and you decide, well, we're going to accelerate it, then you have done already, hopefully 1 and 2. So you can go in stage 3, and your journey can be 1, 2, or 3 years. It all depends on when you start, where you start, and the level of maturity of your teams in pricing science, and the art of pricing. So then, remember the 5 stages right here, and you have at each stages you're going to introduce different pricing capabilities, the resources and assets that you're going to deploy. And then I say here that because it's a transformational approach, you're going to have the other 3 C's: change management, confidence, and champions. And as you can see, change management and confidence building activities increase as you increase the complexity of the tools you're deploying. As you can imagine, when you do a large pricing software implementation, like a Vendavo Pros, you name it, the Zillion, then you have to bring the big guns of change management methodologies, as well as making sure you build collective confidence. And those are practical tools that I propose in the book, 24 tools that you can use to build organizational confidence in pricing. At the same time, there is something that's constant is the champion beating the drum. Is it the chief marketing officer, a chief finance officer, a president of a division, a large high-level, a high-level executive sponsor that needs to generate the drive, show conviction for pricing, support the pricing function? And you look at in some companies where pricing is well adopted, like a 3M, for example, you do have the someone in the C-suite representing the voice of pricing in the C-suite, and then driving the transformation. So what you learn from that slide here, again, the 5 stages, and then these 3 C's that really are helping with change management. The fuel of the transformation is confidence, and then champions really driving with change leadership and sweat equity and really energy, make sure that people feel that pricing is important for the company. So, as you can imagine, it requires different forms of learning, and you just can't put your sales force or multifunctional teams in a room, give them a lecture for a day, and think that it's done. You're going to have to change the mindset. You're going to have to make sure pricing is in the DNA of these people, and you overcome the fact that when you're done with the training, they go back to their old-fashioned ways of doing whatever you want to change. So irreversible change is what you're getting into. So you have to adopt experiential learning techniques and transformative learning techniques, which is also called adult learning theory, which is you don't teach a 55-year-old salesperson who's been doing the same things for 20 years, the same as you teach a college kid who's getting a bachelor's degree. So on the experiential side, you're going to do a lot of experiments, pilot studies, multifunctional teams working in case studies. Success stories are going to be important. Win and recognition, celebration, and really analyzing what's going on with all these activities, a lot of post-mortem. And the transformative learning side, you're going to have to do role-playing, shadowing, language modification sessions, one-on-one coaching. So in the change management approach, then it's going to be a lot of reinforcement at the end of the, once the change is made, a constant reinforcement to get to the point where behaviors change and it's irreversible. At the end of the day, pricing is a complex system. You have to consider it, the function is so complex because you're touching individual practitioners with their preference, their beliefs, their value, their ideologies, and their approach to technologies. At the same time, you're making changes at the team level, at the organizational level, with alignment sessions, segmentation, you name it, activities to get everybody together into training programs. So, and you could push it a step forward by saying, and you know that when you do pricing projects that are very transformational, you will have to go out there in the market and also train distributors and educate some customers. So you have to go internal to external and really looking at how technology is going to help some customers, especially if you embrace this big software, or can you give some tools to your distributors to help you value sell to the end user? So not only you have internal, external, multi-level, multicultural, pricing is a complex system. And this is why it requires the best change management methodologies and the great change leadership process from your champions. So at the end, putting it all together for the journey, you look at the value and pricing masters out there, people doing pricing and value management, in a very progressive and pragmatic way. And there's probably more companies, but what do we have in common? They have a very strong culture. The culture of change and the culture of value is in their DNA. And they focus a lot on learning. And at the end, it's all about learning new things and making sure that when the users receive new tools, they have the capabilities of absorbing whatever we train them on, to assimilate it, and to be proficient at using it, right? So that's what we track in change management, the proficiency, the adoption, and the assimilation. And they learn much faster than competition. Because at the end of the day, Everybody can buy the same software. The difference is, it's how you integrate it and how you train your users, how collectively the organization is going to learn this and be able to execute all these pricing changes internally and externally. So it is about a pricing culture, and that means pretty much changing a lot of these things on the right. What's your organizational design? Where is pricing reporting into? Who's got responsibility? Do you do a pricing council or not? Looking at goals and incentives, the cultural collaboration. Do you have a right customer orientation? Do you have a long-term orientation? Because at the end of the day, when you do these multiple projects, sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer to get to payback, especially when you look at segmentation work, for example. Do you have a discipline of execution, et cetera, et cetera? So it's a lot of work, and that's what you go to the Pricing Society events and you look at these journeys that are presented by practitioners, and they can take 3, 4, 5, up the way to 10 years. The question is, you cannot wait 10 years to show results. So in change management, you really have to line up the case studies, line up the quick wins, so that you show top management, here is a payback this quarter, here is a payback in 6 months, here is a payback in 3 years, and reassure them that the investments are done with the payback. So the secret sauce is really preparing for a pricing journey and not a destination. To anticipate and prepare for ups and downs, beware of the valleys of despair. So usually when you do these very intensive pricing programs, and that requires a lot of interactions from the sellers and the customer service people, marketing, there's going to be sometimes areas of fatigue, frustration, breakdown, delays, you name it. But at the end, your project manager is going to be important, but you will have to be change managers. And this is why I do a lot of training in change management in pricing, because pricing projects are somewhat complicated, and they need you need to explain to users and the consumer of your pricing change why they need to do this. What's in it for me? Why it's the outcome? What's the pricing vision? How do you define success together? And then it's all about building confidence. Confidence in the culture. Because at the end, I like that Peter Drucker's quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You could do all the strategy you want, you could put all the tools and the capabilities you want, at the end, you have to move your culture. And the culture has to be around value, change, capacity, and pricing. So here is a quick example of the journey that I was lucky and privileged to do with Ardex, and I had a great team at Ardex. I must tell you, I was blessed with the best pricing team and the best commercial and marketing team. So if there's some Ardex people here on the phone, excellent. I had a great time. But we started in 2008, and we moved. I left the organization at the end of 2012, and I know they continue working on it. But you see, the first step of the journey is to go right. And I always recommend to companies to go first, work on your realization, put your processes in place, put your systems in place, your guidelines, and then start injecting value-based pricing in the process. So move right before you go north, and not north and then right. Because value, is a difficult and subjective concept, and you may confuse your audience a little bit more. So we did this in four steps that included a lot of actions, a lot of programs and initiatives, and pretty much the lessons learned were for us, we had to invest in capabilities, and we did this. We had strong capabilities on dollarization and monetization of differentiation value, and on customer benefits, and we were able to manage complexity, to create bundles, to create new services, to create platforms for customers, and dollarize them, so that we knew how much customer value we delivered to the end user through the dollarization process. Excellent organizational alignment. As you can imagine, as a CEO, I was able to convince everybody to get on board the journey, and we had CPPs in sales, marketing, operation, tech support, R&D. Everybody went through pricing training. Everybody understood our value prop. We had strong differentiation alignment sessions as part of training as well. We invested in technology. At some point, when you go along the journey, you can't do things manually. And when you have 200,000 SKUs or 20,000 SKUs, it is difficult to manage everything in Excel. So we deployed SAP. We had the leverage point platform that helped us in the acceleration of the value-based pricing transformation. We used product apps and dollarization apps. We used training technology to help, train people in plants or in the field. So we leveraged the power of technology to really help us, accelerate the journey. That's what it took us, quote unquote, only 3 to 4 years. We used a lot of customized and targeted communication campaigns to support the sales force and the distributors because we were doing 100% of our business through distribution. We had to go down and train distribution and communicate to them why they needed to get on board the value train. And that's why at the end we had our own secret sauce was internal and external training programs in pricing, in value, in differentiation, in segmentation, in negotiation that were unique to us. And then we went outside and started training our partners as well. So those are 5 key success factors for us. Every recipe is different. Every journey is different. Every secret sauce is different. You need to learn from the best in class and how they've done it, and then develop your own journey, your own roadmap. Make sure you explain to the teams what is the definition of pricing success. When do we reach the pricing power zone, and how do we stay there? So that's an accelerated version of the book, and in the book you see a great explanation of a transformational model, deep dive in the 5 C's, how to handle roadblocks, what to expect, looking at the pricing myth that usually still alive and kicking in organizations, and then the skills you need to work on. So that book is available now, and it's a great read and not technical, so really looking at the soft side of pricing to make sure that in your organization, when you decide to go on a transformational journey, you pay equal attention to the technical side of pricing and the social and organizational side of pricing. Both are important because at the end, pricing is a science and price is an art. And you cannot ignore the art. And in the art is the confidence, change management, soft skills, getting people on board, modifying your language, etc., etc. And that is equally important, between technical and social/behavioral. So that's the story for this webinar. I encourage you to think about how change management can help you with your pricing journey and your next pricing project. I encourage you to read more about the 5C model because you could apply that. If you're not doing a journey, you could actually apply that just for a pricing project. I'm happy I was able to share with you some of these insights. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you very much, Stephan. Glad you are. Some great perspectives, some great insights. We have a few questions that came in during the webinar. And by the way, there's still time to enter your question on the panel on your screen. While you're entering, just a few words about Leverage Point, a single platform for customer value collaboration throughout the product lifecycle. No matter where you use value, in development or in execution, focusing on customer value takes collaboration among team members and cross-functionally. Leverage Point is used in R&D processes to make better decisions, go, no-go, product design decisions based on the customer value that products create. Value is used in the heavy lifting period of product launch for price setting, understanding customer segments based on value, and to design offering strategies. Finally, and sometimes most importantly, value is used in execution to communicate more clearly and to close more deals at a better price. Great B2B enterprises deploy Leverage Point as a way to embed value fast in their organization, both for new and for existing products, to make better decisions, to communicate their differentiation, and to execute in sales. We see Leverage Point being embedded as a product development discipline, as a central part of product launch planning to set pricing and offering strategies, as a marketing discipline where product managers regularly review customer value creation as part of their regular brand planning and goal-setting processes. And finally, as a way that sales and pre-sales can be more effective. Using Leverage Point in the sales process is a better way to have the value conversation with the customer, where a dynamic value proposition can be both more flexible and more effective than a static PowerPoint deck or Excel sheet. Sales teams deploy simple, tailored value propositions with strong value headlines, easily changed by sales for customer specifics, with consistent graphics and messages, and with ready access to information and the ability to drill down into quantified value as appropriate. We see customers building trust in sales teams as they validate an offering's value through consistent sales conversations with accessible collateral supported by leverage point. Thanks. So I see we have some great questions. A reminder that if you complete the webinar survey, you will have the opportunity to win a free copy of Stephan's new book, The Pricing Journey. So this is your last chance to add to the list. And yes, the first question, everyone will get a copy of the presentation slides as well as a link to the recording. So I see a number of questions coming in. Let's start off, Stephan, with which is the most important of the 5 C's?
Well, I would say, based on my quantitative model, I would say the champions. And the champion is really, and as you know, in organizations, people listen to 2 voices: the top person, the CEO, and the direct supervisor. So when the champion understands that there is a need to change, then then pricing appears on the map, and then resources flow. The design can be changed, the organizational design can be changed, and then they let the team work. So I would say, for me personally, we see great results. I conducted a separate quantitative research project with 557 CEOs and showed that the combination of the CEOs championing a great pricing process is dramatically in changing the profit performance. So the champion at the top is, for me, probably where you get started from. Then you need the other C's, obviously: strong capabilities, confidence building, and change management. But if there's no CEO or CMO or CFO pushing it, as you can imagine, other strategic priorities will be worked on and not pricing. So I see that as probably the most important of all.
So what do you see as the typical payback of pricing transformation and the journey?
Well, I would say if you read the second book called The ROI of Pricing, and you'll see all the nuggets of ROI in there. I was able to research all the consultants' reports and surveys, and the typical payback for a journey, which between 24 months and 36 months, is between 2 and 4 points, incremental points of EBIT. So if your company is $1 billion, you can imagine that across the board, when you reach the the enterprise-wide level, I would say, when you start moving the culture at the organizational level, then it's a lot of money that you can get. Now, some people say it's only 1%, others say it's more, but the consensus from McKinsey, Deloitte, PwC, it's anywhere between 2 and 4 points of EBIT.
Great. So how do you get the sales force on board? Any tips? And how does the sales force need to be supported?
Well, as you can imagine, the sales force are a critical component of the journey, and critical function, critical component, critical actor. And one of the mistakes that I see most often is the fact that all the work is done without the sales force, and then it's given to the sales force to go out and execute. And as you can imagine, it's not working well. So one of the most critical tips that I explain in my change management in pricing certification is the sales force needs to be involved from the stage 1 of the transformation, in the exploration and discovery of the pricing issues, understanding root causes, and then along the way, when you deploy these technical resources or assets, you bring in the sales force every step of the way, to the point where maybe some project leader assignments can be given to sales. For example, in our transformation, we deployed leverage point in Ardex, and we had given the project responsibility to our director of sales. And that person was in charge, although it was quote-unquote a pricing value-based pricing software, we position it as a value selling and sales enablement solution, and we gave the leadership, deployment leadership to sales. These are activities that could really bring the sales force on board. Another way to get the sales force on board is to change compensation and to align over a period of 2-3 years compensation, which could be more in revenue and volume. You align that more to value and margin and pricing, to support the transformation. So those are 2 tips.
Good. What if your organization is striving for value pricing, but your competitors are stuck in the white flag zone?
Excellent point. So what you're going to have to do is take a more of a portfolio approach to this and look at which pockets of my offering are more differentiated, which maybe area of my business can I extract more value, which could be, for example, outside of the product. It could be software, it could be services, it could be relationship. So you're going to have to find these pockets of differentiation and try to move the needle first with these, understanding that your competitors will be focusing on products and will be driving down the pricing discussions to commoditize it, because that's their approach. It's a cost plus or competition based, and they're going to fight you on price. So when you're in that environment, obviously you have to realize that you're facing headwinds because the market may not be as receptive because of the commoditization happening. So you have to focus on really what you can control, and what you can control is these pockets of differentiation. And a journey could be happening in 2 different industries, and one could be 2 or 3 points of EBIT, another one could be half a point, and that is due to the fact that you have a more commoditized set of competitors that drive prices down.
Great. Tell us more about how to embed value in an organization when you don't have many people trained on value before. And you must see this all the time. What do you focus on in your CVM certification program?
Yeah, so I wrote a great paper that is attached on my website. If you go to publication, it's called Infiltrating Value-Based Pricing in the Core Business. So you really have to go step by step again and find the areas of entry that you could start explaining people the value concepts. And that's usually when you do price increases, or when you introduce new products and services, when you change your segmentation. Those are techniques situations where you can explain the concepts of value. Depending on your price and value maturity levels, it will be very complicated to go in and tell everybody about value and try to change them when they don't have the first understanding of what differentiation is and what value is. So that's what I do in the CVM program. The first half of the CVM program, which is half day or a day, is about extracting true differentiation, turning that into customer benefits, and showing the attendees that they do have value in their offering. So those are done with practical, real products and services of their organization. So, for example, we did this with Braskem and Michelin and Kennametal, and we actually took their products and we showed in the multifunctional team setting, yes, you have differentiation here, and here's your customer value. And people start seeing this concept. They started realizing that, oh my goodness, yeah, we do have differentiation and we do have value, and that changes the game, because back to experiential learning. Once you could tell them all you want, you have value, but you could make them work in a real case study, in a real product, and if they discover it themselves with a salesperson, a finance person, a marketing person, an innovation person around the room, around the table, then it's eye-opening, and they believe it because they found it themselves. So it's a difference between doing and then telling them. And these ha-ha moments really are transformational, and then they really understand when they receive the message, we're going to do more value work, they understand why it's important. So that changes the game. The second point is in your foundation of pricing, in the second step of the transformational model, this is where you also inject basic knowledge about what's customer value, what's the difference between value and value added. Value doesn't mean cheap, and you tie it to differentiation. So those are modules that I recommend. For example, training your entire sales force on what differentiation means, what's true differentiation versus nice to have differentiation, what is the customer value relationship with differentiation. Those are easy 40-minute webinars that you could do with all your salespeople.
The next question doesn't come from us, not prompted by us, but it's an interesting question. How does Leverage Point compete, overlap, integrate, augment a tool like Pros, Vendavo, Zillion?
Okay, so you will be able to extract some value-based pockets out of the price optimization software, because inherently you're going to look at your transactional data and find these pockets of value, additional profit, and that's what's called value-based pricing. Okay, so the data is going to give you areas where you could maybe increase your price, or you could maybe bundle and then make greater pricing, actions, and there is going to be value to be taken out of these transactional analysis or segmentation analysis. So I think those are great, but they're very transactional in nature, based on transactions, and it's based on historical data. So that's as great value. The difference with Leverage Point is the fact that you can systematize the way you manage your value-based pricing process and the way you enable your sales force to go out and deliver value messages and value selling. And it accelerates. So, for example, when we did this in Ardex, we had, so many Excels that we could do up front. We had our own tool, and then we decided to go to Leverage Point. And then Leverage Point allows you to really systematize your library of value drivers, accelerate the way you do value models for a hospital, or you could do for accounts or for products, by using the infrastructure and by immediately transferring that into PowerPoint presentation and tools that our sales teams or our marketing communication teams could show to the market. And the gains in productivity, the gain in sales effectiveness are tremendous, and the ROI for us was great. So it's two different tools, and it worked. We didn't use the price optimization tool in Ardex because we didn't have the size, but we used Leverage Point because that was critical for us to make sure we quickly transfer the core business and all our SKUs into the platform.
Great. If you don't mind, I'll just add a note, which is what we see among Leverage Point customers is that value management software like Leverage Point is complementary with price management software where implemented, Pros, Vendavo, Zillion. So we have a number of customers who do both, and find that the two efforts really are complementary. There may be places of integration, but most importantly, they're really helping at different points, as you say. The difference between processing transaction data versus understanding the customer and being able to communicate value. So next question, how do you use 5 Cs to keep your existing business, to maintain your existing business price when competitors offer a lower price?
Yeah, so the 5C, those are a little bit of mixing the organizational dimensions to pricing tactics. So you're facing competitors. Obviously, the market is very dynamic, and you may face very commoditized market. But if you make a decision as a company that you're going to pay attention to your pricing, and you're going to try to make changes so that you can capture more value from the market, understanding you compete, right? The 5C is going to help you with doing this, and doing this with greater confidence, for example, in the sales force and in the marketers, so that they quickly understand what competition is doing. And as part of the capabilities you're going to have to develop, which is one of the C's, then you're going to have to do a very advanced competitive analysis, make sure you truly understand your differentiation, and maybe do a better segmentation process. So that will help you better respond to what the competition is doing, because competition, depending on the nature of your competition, if they're followers or what we call pricing cowboys, and they go out in the market and try to dilute the perception of your differentiation. So it is going to be up to you through, for example, value-based pricing software, or to really systematically project value the right way based on your understanding of competition. So the fact that you're building on capabilities, the fact that you're building on confidence, the fact that you have a center of excellence in pricing, all these C's will help you better respond to competition in the market.
Good. Let's go to some of the problems. What are the typical breakdowns or barriers that you found at Ardex or that you've seen in the journey, and what do you do to surmount those?
Yeah, I would say the most typical roadblocks, I call them in the book. One of them is when it's too difficult, then you give up. So there's a lack of will and a lack of maybe confidence in the C-suite, because sometimes you do have to make tough changes. Changing the Salesforce compensation process is not easy, and it requires a strong will. Another one is a change of CEO and change of priorities that happens in large corporation. So that will, change your strategic initiative and maybe your resource allocation. A big crisis will definitely change your pricing journey because of the dynamic, changes in value perception. So we had a crisis in 2009, and as you know, your value maps completely were disrupted because, customers were not willing to pay that much. They were willing to make concessions. So that changes your value-based pricing process and changes your journey. I would say, another roadblock is the fact that you don't have the resources. So, your business is maybe struggling, and they start cutting costs, and then they don't give you this, they don't give you that, they don't give you the training, and then obviously that's when you become stuck in the zone of good intention. So all these are typical cases that, you will find in companies. Now, for me, my view is, manage the uncontrollable. You can't control the uncontrollable. So those you anticipate them, and you're going to have to do your best. What you can control, then you should manage very proactively and with strong intention. And those are the roadblocks that you could really influence. A crisis, or for example, a currency devaluation that just happened with the dollar. Those are typical disruption that will maybe changes the way the projects are going to be lined up, reprioritize some initiatives. Maybe a software will be deployed next year because there's not, there's no funds this year. So, and that's the nature of business. You have to be agile. You have to be flexible. You have to learn, different things, and be ready to change your roadmap.
Okay, thanks. So I think we have time for one more question. So the last one here that we have time for, and please, we're glad to. Stephan's glad to follow up on other questions, but the last one here is, when you think of responsibilities in this process, who should own what? How do you make members of a team accountable for, let's just say, value-based pricing? How do you make members accountable for price realization?
Okay, so I would say it starts with, do you have a strong commitment from the top that the pricing journey is important. Pricing is going to be one element that is going to change the way we do business and change the P&L. And then from there, if you have very strong support, then accountability should come. Then where does accountability reside? It's because it's a multifunctional, or mobilization, I would say. I always recommend to have you're going to have a project team, pricing project team, and you're going to have a pricing council. The pricing council can be the forum where actually accountability resides, and the ROI is calculated, the project progress reports are shown, because in the council you have sales, marketing, finance. So for example, if you have a pilot project that you're going to do with a region, then you form a pricing council for that region, separate from the project team, and then that pricing council will be in charge of making sure execution happens. And it starts in the council with the president or the regional divisional leader or a VP of sales, or someone has to be an executive presence in it, led by the pricing team, the pricing manager, for example, and you track success. And then you say, well, this is what we're facing, and the council becomes the forum for dialogue, for troubleshooting, for decision making. Now, there's a lot of factors that are going to influence accountability, as you can imagine. How far do you report from the CEO? Who do you report into? IT, sales, or marketing? All these factors influence your visibility of pricing and inherently the accountability for pricing success. So that's a very good question, by the way.
Great. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today, but thank you so much, Stephan, for some great insights. And thank you, everyone, for attending today. All attendees will receive a copy of the slides and recording within a day of the webinar. And don't miss your free copy of Stephan's book, The Pricing Journey, or your opportunity for it. Just complete the short survey as you exit. Thanks to everyone for watching. Until next time.